Nearly 1,000 new residents are moving to Florida every day. Managing that growth is difficult. Find out what St. Lucie County is doing to plan for future development next on Inside St. Lucie. Hello and welcome to this edition of Inside St. Lucie, SLC TV's monthly government affairs show. I'm your host, Eric Gill, Communications Director for St. Lucie County. And on today's show, my guest will be St. Lucie County Commissioner Chris Sadowski and Planning and Development Services Director Ben Balser. We're going to discuss future developments and planning here in St. Lucie County, but before we meet our guest, here's some upcoming events and announcements from the Board of County Commissioners. All three St. Lucie County pools are open for the summer with limited hours due to the staffing shortages. You can check for the available hours at stlucieco.gov/aquatics. And if you know someone who's at least 16 years old and looking for summer work, visit stlucieco.gov/careers to apply. Now for the latest updates about all St. Lucie County Commission meetings, workshops, and events, be sure to visit our website at stlucieco.gov and click on our comprehensive calendar. And if you'd like to be added to our press release distribution list, send us an email at pio@stlucieco.org. We're also on social media at St. Lucie Gov, so we hope you'll follow us there. We're going to take a quick break. Before we do, we're going to check in with the latest economic development stats with another St. Lucie Works. St. Lucie County's tourism revenue increased by 16% for April compared to April of last year, which is a new record collection for that month. Fiscal year to date, bed tax collections are 16.5% higher than last fiscal year. Overall building activity in unincorporated St. Lucie County dropped slightly in April by 5%, with 1,287 permits submitted compared to March's 1,367. According to the Florida Realtors Association, the median home sale price in St. Lucie County in April was $380,000, the same as it was last year at this time. While condo values rose by 7%, with the median price at $305,000. St. Lucie County's unemployment rate dropped in April to 2.7%, down from March's 3.1%. Statewide, the unemployment rate was 2.6%. The largest increase in the labor force on the Treasure Coast was in education and health services with 2,300 new jobs, followed by professional business services with 2,100 new jobs, and government with 1,300 new jobs. If you work for a local business looking for skilled or trained labor, be sure to contact the staff at CareerSource as they can assist your company with its recruitment and training needs. And if you are an individual looking for a job, they can help you as well. Visit the CareerSource online at careersourcerc.com or call 1-866-4U2-HIRE. Welcome back to Inside St. Lucie. I'm your host, Eric Gill, Communications Director for St. Lucie County, and I'm joined by St. Lucie County Commissioner Chris Sadowski. Commissioner, thanks for coming on again. And our new Planning and Development Services Director, Ben Balser. Thank you, Ben, for coming on. This is the first time on Inside St. Lucie.
It is, and I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on. Well, Commissioner, I thought we'd start with, you wanted to talk a little bit about development and planning, which is a huge topic. And anytime we put anything out on social media about, hey, we want your input on the survey, the first statement is usually stop the building. We've built out enough. Stop building in the city, which, you have to explain to people the city controls development within city limits and county only controls unincorporated county. And ultimately, people have property rights in Florida and, just because you built here, we can't put the wall up, unfortunately, or fortunately, to stop future development.
Well, you're helping me unpack a lot of stuff.
I know, I'm trying.
so let's kind of just step back about 240 years, right?
Okay.
So the nation, this is July, right? So the 4th of July just passed, and we're seeing how Washington D.C. actually was planned back in 1784. So if you look at the city of Washington D.C. today, you'll see how it's morphed over time as to how it started out with horse and buggy and how it's turned into roads, and then how it's properly been planned out where natural vistas and streams and rivers and all of that come into play. And why is that important? Well, we've seen how DC has been able to morph over 240 years. Well, let's take about little old St. Lucie County and Port St. Lucie and Fort Pierce and St. Lucie Village. Well, we're not that old, but we have an opportunity with a lot of green space and agricultural lands that don't exist in South Florida. So you talked about some of the folks who are concerned about, hey, stop building. Well, there's a lot of reasons why those folks from South Florida are now moving to St. Lucie County, because they want to have quality of life. And I think that's what's important. So in Washington, D.C., if you've been there, you may have been to the hotel at L'Enfant, and Washington and Jefferson had a part to play with L'Enfant to actually to build or create the planning project that which is Washington, D.C. today. So, going back and seeing the value over 240 years ago to planning cities with, quality of life involved, natural vistas, as I said, I think it's important for today. And what you're seeing today also is that those who maybe moved to Port St. Lucie in 1990 with 45,000 people are seeing a difference today with 240,000 people. So what has transpired over the last 30 years has been the growth of Port St. Lucie, and we're going to stay on that for now because some folks are dealing with the increased density. Commissioners, council persons back then approved a lot of this development 30 years ago. So now you're starting to see it come out of the ground today. And so that's why some of the things that I've been focusing on is let's make sure that our comprehensive plan, and I'm going to let you talk about the terms that we use and how it affects what the Board of County Commissioners does. So how do we look at today? We look at today by what's around us. But what's it going to be like in 10, 20, 30, 40 years? Do we want to have quality of life? Do we want to have open spaces? Do we want to have walkable communities? Do we want to have 400,000 cars on the road? So all of those things come into play when dealing with and trying to see the future in planning. So that's really what I wanted to have a conversation about today. And then there's a lot of questions from the public. Well, why can't I do that here? And what is zoning? And what is land use? And so on and so forth. So I brought a professional with me to kind of talk about, what are the basic planning principles that go into creating a community, a city, et cetera.
Well, thank you for that, and I appreciate the delving into the history of planning, going back to L'Enfant and Washington, D.C. A lot of folks probably don't realize that Florida was at the forefront of growth management, and that happened in the late 70s, early 80s, whenever we were seeing, similar to today, the drastic increase in population. We were looking at 1,000 new residents a day. The legislature in 1985 passed the Growth Management Act, which required all of the cities and county governments to adopt a comprehensive plan. Now, a comprehensive plan is probably is the most important planning document that the county has. It sets the goals, objectives, and policies, and really has a list of elements: coastal element, housing element, infrastructure element, your capital improvement plan, and what we're going to be talking about probably most importantly is the future land use element, which looks to guide growth and earmark what is appropriate in certain areas of the county, what's not appropriate, trying to balance those mix of uses and where we should provide infrastructure and look to how the county should grow in the future. Those goals, objectives, and policies, they're high-level aspirational principles, and then you get down to your land development code, your land use ordinances, your zoning ordinances, and that sets out the more granular requirements, such as building setbacks, your wetland protection regulations, what's required for a site plan approval or an application. So the comprehensive plan is the overall guiding document, and that ensures the health, safety, and welfare that the county commissioners have adopted and want to see put forth, and how the county continues to grow. And then you have the more in-depth land development code, which sets forth those regulations and specific permitted uses and conditional uses that are allowed with your zoning districts.
That's a great overview, and so there's two segments that I want to kind of look at is what is the individual person who wants to build a home, and what do they have to go through. But as importantly, we're seeing developers from all over the country coming to St. Lucie County wanting to build 2,000, 3,000, 9,000, pick any number of thousands of buildings, rooftops. Some of the challenges we face with that type of development is we need roads, we need sidewalks, we need water, we need sewer, we need drainage, we need all of those things come into play when building a community of that size. And as I said earlier in the segment, Port St. Lucie has approved 55,000 units that have not yet been built, but it's been 20 plus years in which those have coming out of the ground. So from the standpoint of, does the Board of County Commissioners have any control over if a developer comes in and says, I want to build 5,000 units on, I don't know, 500 acres. Is that, that's extreme, but nonetheless, it gives you an idea of what I'm going for here.
So it really depends on what the current land use and zoning is on a piece of property. There are property rights, and Florida is a strong property rights state, and what is able to be accomplished on that property is based off of that land use and zoning. Is it a permitted use? What is the overall density that the future land use provides? Is it 5 units an acre? Is it 2 units an acre? Is it 9 units an acre? Does it require, if they're asking for increased density, do they need to do a future land use map amendment and then come through and do a planned unit development or some sort of plan development to accomplish their goals? So it really is a site-by-site conversation. A lot of large tracts right now we're seeing come in, and we're starting to feel the effects. We moved the urban service boundary in mid-2022.
South of Midway.
South of Midway, and what we're seeing at that in that area it was all zoned agricultural 5. So you're talking about.
So what does that mean before?
And I'm going to go into that. It's one development dwelling unit per 5 acres. So it is the
least
dense, countryside development. And as you transition that into an urban service area, it's incorporated in the urban service boundary, people have the ability to come in through a future land use map amendment and ask for additional entitlements. That means increased density. We're looking at 2 units an acre, 3 units an acre, which is a drastic change, but it is close to, in that area of the county, where we shifted it south of Midway, it's close to that western annexation area in Port St. Lucie, those old DRIs that were in the mid-2000s.
Developments of regional impact.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm sorry.
We speak in acronyms,
so
we're
the
gonna
planning profession, engineering profession, there are just a crazy amount of acronyms, and I apologize.
That's
but
okay.
Development of regional impact was something that occurred through the Growth Management Act in 1985, and it were for large-scale projects that had the ability to impact 2 counties, let's say Martin County, St. Lucie County, just because of their regional impact and their size and growth.
Do governments have any say-so in what a developer can do and say they want to bring in here? And that if they would just want to have the most density possible because that's where their profit margin is, we get that, but quality of life is important to those who actually live here, not those who come to invest and then leave.
So in those instances, whenever you're asking for a future land use map amendment, to go from an Ag 5 land use to a residential suburban, your 2 dwelling units per acre. The board does have the ability to weigh in on those. We do some sub-area policies. We do other things that we look to create a uniform development pattern as we transition out towards those western, more agricultural, rural lands. It's not just a carte blanche. You get what you ask for. The board does, through planned unit developments, have the ability to put conditions of approval on certain projects. Now, if it's a by right use, if somebody comes in and wants to develop at 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres, and it's by right, it's permitted within that zoning district, the board's hands are really tied. That is where you come into the conversation about property rights.
Yeah.
If it's a permitted use and it develops under a regular site plan, major or minor site plan, as long as it meets the bare minimum of code standards, the board is required to approve it.
And I think it's important too, as he's seen comments of, on social media, well, the board needs to stop encouraging, or, it's not like you are reaching out to developers saying, hey, come in with this plan. They're coming in on their own, right?
We're a hot commodity in the development, in development. We're the next frontier. Whenever you see the influx of population growth, people moving down from up north or up from down south, we're seeing on both ends.
And it's not just residential. We've seen huge commercial space too, right? 1 million square feet of warehouses built,
but
multiple.
That was actually, speaking of being done on purpose, is that there was a period of time during 2002 through 2006-ish that was the previous growth spurt, right? So St. Lucie County, Port St. Lucie was the fastest growing city in the nation, second to maybe Las Vegas.
Arizona,
Yeah, and so what we've seen is that boom and bust situation. So in 2007, 8, 9, we saw the values drop off the table. We had 4,000 foreclosures a month. So what your government leaders, I believe, and should be thinking is that let's have a gradual trend line as opposed to this and this, because it hurts everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so and the city and county governments can't keep up with the infrastructure and the cost associated with it. When I came on board, it was $1 million a county mile. Now it's looking at $4 million a county mile.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost of creating the infrastructure is far outweighing the revenue coming in from, and we'll talk about impact fees too, because that's an important part of this conversation. So what I wanted the folks at home to listen to is that you deserve a quality of life. You deserve a community that you have input on. And the Board of County Commissioners and the City Commission and the City Council in Port St. Lucie all grapple with this and trying to understand, what do we want to be when we grow up? But if we don't set the table today, 10, 15, 20 years later, you're going to see the sins of the past in South Florida. And I use that term a lot, around here, but it's true. Be careful what you do today, because it'll affect somebody 10 or 15, 20 years down the road.
And I know our former administrator, Howard Tiffany, used to always call it Florida on the cheap, right? You come in, you do developments with no sidewalks, no lighting district, and then all of a sudden there's an extra 10,000 people in this community going, wait, why don't we have sidewalks? Why don't we have, well, it's much more expensive, as you said, right? $1 million a mile to $4 million, it's more expensive to do it after the fact.
I'll give you a clear example. Harmony Heights, Sunland Gardens, and Paradise Park. Paradise Park, when I first came in, we're asking for roads and drainage and lighting and sidewalks and water and sewer. Well, they have water. That's provided by the city of Fort Pierce, FPUA. But they didn't have all the other elements. The previous commissioner before me took their request and said, let's go find out what it would cost. And they did a report on what it would cost to bring that community up to the standards of a Port St. Lucie PUD, and it would have been
Planned unit development.
Thank you, thank you. It would have been $56,000 to $58,000 assessed per property. So what I explained to folks is that there's a reason why Port St. Lucie looks like it does with planned unit developments, is they pay for it up front. The sidewalks, the drainage, the water, sewer, all that is paid in their original purchase price of the house, or a community development district, which is a whole other thing we won't get into today.
Yeah, we'll save that for the budget in September. We'll save that for the budget show, because you'll hear it in September during the budget hearing.
That's a fact.
Well, and Commissioner, I know you're big too. Whenever these development come in, making sure they're not on package plants. They're tying into the existing septic system, not doing individual wells and
Sewer system.
Sewer system, yeah.
So yes, we know today that based on all the evidence that's around the lagoon with the high nitrogen, phosphorus, even pharmaceuticals that are going into the lagoon, that it's not just coming from agricultural discharge and runoff. It's actually coming from the residential community and septic tanks. So if you were to just go along the 10-mile creek from north to south, there's probably about 100,000 homes, give or take, within a mile of the actual river. So if those are all on septic tanks and you have a big rain, all of that groundwater comes up. Well, what happens to the leach field? It comes up too. Yeah. And so whenever it finally discharges into its outfall, which was likely the 10-mile creek, it ends up in the North Fork in the lagoon. And so we start to see those high impacts of contaminants, nitrogen, phosphorus, pharmaceuticals, et cetera. So moving forward, the state of Florida is very porous, and so we should make it an effort from city, county, but most importantly the state legislature and the governor's office that says we don't build future large communities without having water and sewer. Specifically sewer, just for the fact that that's got to go somewhere. And so it's really important that we argue that. Even though the infill stuff, we had a recent situation on North Beach where we were moving forward with a septic to sewer conversion. And there was 2 or 3 pieces of property that wanted to come in, but they wanted to build on an empty lot, but it was next to a wetland, or it had connection to the lagoon. And so I had asked our board to reconsider the idea of approving it. We took a couple of weeks, we looked into it, and then we were able to have those folks actually tie into the sewer system on North Beach. And so that was a win-win deal, and I was really proud of the board to take the time to say, hey, can we do this better? And the board did just that.
Yeah, And surprisingly this year, we talked about septic and sewer. Another, you talked about the high levels of nitrogen during the fertilizer blackout period. Unfortunately, the governor kind of took away home rule and did away with us to have an ability to have a local fertilizer ordinance, which I think kicks in this year, right?
It actually starts July 1.
Yeah.
So, and it's a 1 year. It's supposed to be a test. I'll wait to see.
Sure.
But we spend billions of dollars across the state taking nitrogen and phosphorus out of the system. But what is the absolute best way to save that money? Is never let it in, right?
Sure.
So if you don't let it in, you don't have to take it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Ben,
Control it at the source.
Yeah. So Ben, a lot of folks are coming here from out of town, and you're on the building and planning side of things. The county recently put together a online permitting process and so on and so forth, and it's been unfolding for about the last year or so. How's that going, and has it been beneficial to the community?
Oh, no doubt it's been beneficial to the community. We implemented an online one-stop shop permitting system. It handles our building permits, planning applications, code enforcement, and contractor licensing. It's called Tyler Intergov, and I believe Eric's going to put a link on this video. But it has been extremely well received. We have cut down on our usage of paper plans. Everything is done electronic. All of our building plans reviewers, everything have updated computer screens where they're able to look at 24 by 36 inch plans, make comments, provide those directly to the contractor or the planning consultant, and it really has sped up the approval process.
And everybody can look at it at the same time?
Everybody can look at it at the same time. We have external reviewers, our FPUA, FPL, fire district. Everybody has incorporated this system, and it's pretty much a seamless approach. There's been a little bit of hiccups with some downtime and stuff that we're working out, which is understandable whenever you have such a new technology. But all of our reviewers, our public works staff, planning and development staff, building staff, ERD, Environmental Resources Department, they're all integrated in the same system. We've seen extreme usage of it, and like you said, and I believe Eric might touch on a little bit of our building permits and our planning applications that we've seen just drastic increases over the past 2 to 3 years, exponential increases.
But you guys are still doing the development review committees where all these agencies and organizations, even in the building, come together once a week. So Public Works knows, okay, there's a new 4,000 unit home going in here. We probably need to widen that road or repave it or
get a contribution.
or get you talked about impact fees. That's right. Segue into that.
Impact fees are planned for the future through right-of-way acquisition. If it's on our right-of-way protection plan and we're looking forward to having a road there in the future, it might not be tomorrow, maybe 10, 20 years down the road, but we can plan for that as we're seeing development come. We have our development review committee, which you touched on, Eric. It's made up of our internal county departments, Public Works, ERD, Planning and Development, our building department, Fire District, and our outside agencies, and we're all able to come to the table, review those applications in a timely manner, provide those comments back to the applicant, and then hopefully get to a board decision.
When I first came on board, there was a time where whoever was bringing, it could have been a private citizen just wanting to build a house. They would bring in their plans, three sets of plans. You bring in 3 sets of plans, you get the thing marked up, and you send it back to the person, and they would have to take it to this person and this person. And then when they were all done, they had to have the plans all redone again to reflect all the comments and then print it out. So you're looking at thousands of dollars that are being saved just from that process. Sure. And again, not having to go back out and back and forth and so on and so forth has been an incredible saving. So that being said, we brought on other technology, the GIS mapping system that's available to the community. Can you talk a little bit about that from a high level?
So GIS, Geographic Information Systems, it falls under a division within Planning and Development Services, and we have a robust public interface with all kinds of information. If you go to the Planning and Development Services homepage, there's a GIS section. You can click on the interactive maps. You could see the active development permits that we have in-house that we're reviewing. You can see previously approved or withdrawn or denied development applications. We have information from our Environmental Resources Department on our parks and preserves.
Boat ramps, I know they were working on an updated boat ramp map.
There's all kinds of information out there. It's extremely helpful for our real estate community anybody doing title searches to go on and take a look if there's an existing code enforcement case on a property. It's all out there at your fingertips. You can find that right there on the Planning and Development Services homepage.
Ben and I were even talking, we use it all the time because we get calls all the time. I need permit records. Well, let's see address first because,
Yes.
oh, you're in the city limits of Port St. Lucie. You need to go to them for those building plans, you know, because a lot of people
And
don't know where the boundaries are.
Providing
Sure.
those online resources has cut down on some of the phone calls. And I'm not saying unnecessary phone calls
Sure.
because people need information, but if it's right there, if you have internet
24/7.
access, you can take a look at that anytime.
Yeah, I'll share with you that on a side thing that I do, I have real estate. I don't do a lot of it, but I had a client come in and ask for all these types of things that they wanted for their house. They wanted to build a garage. And when we got deeper down into it, it was a much larger scenario that he just thought he could just come in and do whatever he wanted to do without any issues. And we found that he had some limitations on what he could accomplish. But having that GIS system has helped him actually look through and kind of understand how the whole system works and what's available, what's not available.
Sure.
And then the planner of the day. I think we've talked about that before with businesses, wanting to come in and cite, say, a dental office in a place that didn't accept that from a zoning and land use standpoint. So you want to talk a little bit about how that works?
Yes, so we do.
Planner of the
We
day.
have my planner of the day. It's not every day for 8 or 9 hours a day, but we do have a set schedule. It's online that you can come in and either talk in person or on the phone with our planner of the day. You can ask anything from what is my zoning district, what are the permitted uses, how do I accomplish this proposed use before I actually sign on the dotted line during your due diligence period and make a bad real estate investment. And that's really what we're here to do. We're here to protect the public and have them get the proper information in order to make these really high-level decisions.
And a lot of that conversation happened too with the chamber. The
Yep.
chamber has been instrumental. The TCBA, the Treasure Coast Builders Association, has some input in helping us understand, what are their clients facing. And so this board and previous boards have been very, very transparent and very open to, finding better ways of doing business. The way we did it, 15, 20 years ago, does not exactly work today. And so all of the changes that you're starting to see between technology and how we're actually interfacing with the general public, the developers, the builders, and the contractors. And everybody wants to have some kind of consumer protection. We want to make sure that the builders, the contractors are licensed, and make sure that they don't have any issues from past experiences. We saw a swimming pool situation in
Just
recent
recently,
past that was very, very bad for the community. But being able to have that resource to say, hey, does this builder have this, and this, and go to the Contractors Advisory Board.
Yeah, that's a good reminder as we get into hurricane season. So any damage that we may get, we still got a long few months ahead. Make sure you're using a licensed contractor because we know whenever there's storms, there's those guys that rotate around the country and come in and do it for cheap and hit, they do shoddy work and then split town and there's nothing we can do. But if you use a licensed contractor.
And we could provide that list to anybody from the public. We do have 2 code and contractor licensing investigators that actually go out and make sure that these people that are doing work within the county have the proper licenses. You can call up at any time to check on a contractor's license, and we want to make sure that people are hiring licensed contractors.
Absolutely. Commissioner, that's a lot to unpack in a short
Yeah.
time. Is there anything else you want to
Gosh,
mention?
there's so much, but I just wanted to give the public an opportunity to just kind of get a basis of understanding. It is somewhat complicated in times like this, and a lot of folks are coming from somewhere else, whether it be New York or California or Chicago, doesn't matter. They're coming here and we're a different animal, basically. We don't follow the New York rules and so on and so forth. But I used to do this in New Jersey. Well, it's a little different here. And so a lot of things that we do today from a building standpoint, code standpoint, actually go all the way back to Hurricane Andrew. You brought up hurricane. Well, Miami-Dade Code was actually created out of that entire mess down there. And so there's a reason why you have certain levels of hurricane windows and shutters and so on and so forth. So you don't put these rules in place in the state of Florida without some kind of a history. And so we've seen the Surfside catastrophe, and so now all of our high-rise condominiums are going through reviews and inspections based on past actions and unfortunately catastrophes.
Yeah.
So since you brought up the hurricane season, let's get out there and let's get all of your goods, water, and so on and so forth, all your supplies, checking to see where your shelters, if you're looking to be in the shelter, make sure you register early. That's important.
For the pet friendly and special needs.
Right. So all of those things are important, and make sure you have your household, go bag if you're going to leave the community. That's another opportunity. And of course, if you have a generator, make sure you know how to use it properly.
Yes.
I would be working on it today and making sure that it's in good working order today, rather than
at the 11th hour.
Exactly, because you're not going to have the equipment you need at the Home Depot or wherever you're going to.
Yep.
And then last thing, we're right in the middle of summer. We just started the summer season. Water safety is incredibly important. Please don't let your children be around the pool without supervision, because it only takes a second.
Or the proper, we're talking about code,
Safe,
the proper fencing around it. Yeah.
Right, so those are all very important. And of course, there are a lot of swim lessons that are going on currently and throughout the year even. So it's water safety is very important. So
Absolutely.
Let's protect our children.
Absolutely. Ben, anything else you want to mention? Obviously, a lot of that information is on the planning website for folks.
Yeah, a lot of information on the planning website. If anybody wants to know what's going on around them, please feel free to call the Planning and Development Services Department, 462-2822, and we can direct your call to whoever you need to talk to. I know Planning and Development is an umbrella organization. We kind of do everything as far as from cradle to grave is what I call it. We have, if you have a concept, you can come in for a pre-application meeting with our Development Review Committee. We'll handle your planning approvals, your building permits, code enforcement if that's necessary, and then if the building has run its course, we'll issue your demo permit. So we're an umbrella organization, and we do a lot, and we're very busy, but always have time to answer questions from the public.
And my final thought is the public has a part to play in any of these public hearings that we have. If a community is coming forward, whether it's 500 units or whether it's 25 units or it's 5,000 units, you have a voice, you have an opportunity to come to public hearings and state your case and reasons for or against. And then also the county has planning projects that go forward. Right now, we're looking at the towns, villages, and countryside. That's a planning program that actually was approved in 2007 and actually won an award for what it provides for the community. Most recently, Martin County created or approved 4,000 units in the Kiplinger project, which is just south of Port St. Lucie. And so that'll give you an idea that communities have an opportunity to seek better. We don't have to settle for cookie cutter heavy density of South Florida. We can be much better. We can be much broader. We can have more quality of life. And I think St. Lucie County deserves it. I think the citizens of St. Lucie County deserve it.
And I think over time the citizens have shown that. In '97 when they approved the environmentally sensitive lands bond, we bought 10 or 11,000 acres. We took $20 million worth of bond money and bought 78 million dollars worth of land.
That's called a return on your investment.
That is, yes, and it's probably time for us to do that again. So
well, look at Indian River just past theirs. 50,000 they went for, or 50 million.
Yep.
So people want open space, and they don't want to be crowded. They don't want to be on top of each other. They want to know that we had COVID. You couldn't be up close to everybody, right? So I think that really gave us an opportunity to say, why is open space important?
But again, that went out to the voters approved that, and it may be something we have to do again, like the half-cent sales tax. We're 5 years into that 10-year program, and I think the residents realize that we need this infrastructure. So you either get it through property taxes, or we can do a sales tax and have 20% of it come from the people that are using our roads and beaches and preserves. So, and that's been, and then we're going to have Public Works on soon to give us an update on where they are through that, because I know we're trying to get them to give us that updated content to let us know, because I know they're chipping away at that list. So. And there's probably new things to be added to it.
Yeah, they're way ahead too.
Yeah,
So
a lot of the roads you drive down, you see the sign paid for with your half-cent sales tax, and I think that's a great idea.
So, well, thank you both for coming on the
Eric.
show again.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate
Thank
you. I appreciate you.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Inside St. Lucie, and we hope you'll tune in again next month. If you have topics or subjects you'd like to see covered here on the program relating to St. Lucie County government, give us a call at 772-462-1791 or send us an email at pio@stlucieco.org. And if you'd like to see previously aired episodes of this or other SLC TV programs, visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StLucieGov. I'm your host, Eric Gill. For myself and the staff, thanks for watching.